After hearing their dog bark at the drain for the last few days, Fred and Debbie decided to see what all the fuss was about. Fred and Debbie were alarmed when their dog Zoe showed unusual interest in a drain. They expected to find a toy but were surprised by a disturbing sound. The realization of the situation prompted Debbie to call 911 in distress. Despite Fred's attempts to calm her, guilt overtook him for not checking sooner. Debbie anxiously questioned if they were too late. After waiting anxiously for the police without any sign, Debbie urged action, but Fred struggled with a heavy cabinet obstructing the drain. He suddenly ran outside, leaving Debbie watching from the window. Fred hurried into the shed, grabbed a crowbar, and returned to Debbie, instructing her to step aside. He wedged the crowbar under the cabinet, attempting to pry it up. Seizing the moment, Debbie swiftly pulled aside the drain cover, revealing what was inside. As they confronted the unexpected sight, they wondered why Zoe had been so fixated on the drain. Debbie and Fred had recently moved into their new home when Zoe's behavior changed. She became anxious whenever entering the master bathroom, sniffing around nervously. Initially dismissing it as Zoe adjusting poorly, they soon realized it was more serious. After days of strange behavior, Zoe finally barked at a drain, startling Debbie, who had been applying eyeliner. Despite Debbie's frustration, Zoe's agitation continued unabated, unnoticed as Debbie left the room in annoyance. He went to check on Zoe in the bathroom, where she continued barking at the drain. Debbie finished applying lipstick when Fred urgently called her. Concerned, Debbie rushed to the bathroom, where Fred gestured for silence near the drain. Debbie was stunned and nearly overwhelmed when she discovered something alarming in the drain. Eventually, they decided on 911, and Debbie made the call, her voice trembling with anxiety. She struggled to describe the situation to the operator, emphasizing the urgency for assistance. "Please send someone." After a tense wait, they decided to take action themselves. Fred hurried to the shed for a crowbar while Debbie anxiously waited. He quickly returned, ready to pry open the cabinet blocking the drain. With determination, they prepared to uncover whatever lay beneath, resolved to solve the mystery on their own. Fred positioned the crowbar under the heavy cabinet, preparing to lift it. With Debbie watching anxiously, he exerted effort. "It's moving," he called, muscles straining as the cabinet gradually lifted. Debbie encouraged him as he made progress, eventually revealing the hidden drain cover inch by inch, and they peered into the dark hole, straining to see. Realizing they needed light, Fred used his phone's flashlight, revealing a damp and shadowy interior. Fred illuminated the drain while Debbie leaned closer, both searching anxiously. Unable to discern much, Debbie reached into the drain. Despite her efforts, Debbie couldn't grasp anything. Fred became increasingly worried as he checked his watch, realizing time was slipping away since they called 911. He urgently reminded Debbie of the ticking clock, but she persisted, reaching deeper into the drain. The tension mounted as she struggled, her desperation palpable. Suddenly, Debbie gasped in alarm as her arm became trapped. Panicking, she cried out for Fred's help. Fred knelt beside her, trying to calm her and carefully attempting to free her arm. Despite his efforts, Debbie's arm remained stuck, causing her pain and frustration. Fred had a sudden inspiration and hurried to the kitchen, finding olive oil to lubricate Debbie's trapped arm. Returning to the bathroom, he applied the oil carefully. With cautious manipulation, Fred successfully freed her arm, bringing immediate relief. Debbie and Fred, now with her arm free, sat by the drain pondering their next steps. They observed the mysterious object still inside, barely visible in the dim light. Fred expressed uncertainty about how to retrieve it, prompting Debbie to suggest calling the fire department for their specialized equipment. As she prepared to make the call, they heard police sirens approaching, bringing unexpected relief. Fred quickly briefed the police officers about the situation upstairs, emphasizing the mysterious object in the drain that they couldn't reach. Concerned, the officers inspected the drain with flashlights, exchanging serious glances as they realized the need for additional resources. Deciding to call the fire department for specialized assistance, Debbie, anxious and tense, sat on the bathtub edge, wiping olive oil from her arm. She fretted about the delay, asking Fred about the arrival time of help, while both observed the officers by the drain, expecting sirens. The officers, quietly strategizing, acknowledged the complexity ahead but focused on maintaining calm. Fred and Debbie exchanged worried glances, realizing their cozy bathroom had become an emergency scene. Debbie, gripped by fear and maternal instinct, heard cries from the drain that resembled a newborn's but hoped it might be something else. Fred, uncertain, couldn't confirm. They anxiously awaited resolution while officers strategized nearby. Debbie struggled to maintain composure, suggesting it might be an animal. The arrival of the fire department underscored the seriousness of the situation, their somber demeanor matching the severity of the circumstances. Debbie and Fred anxiously await outside as firefighters work inside, their movements echoing ominously through the house. Debbie's nerves are on edge with each sound, prompting her to question the ongoing activities. Fred tries to reassure her despite his own uncertainty about the situation. The atmosphere is tense, filled with the clanging of tools and the muffled voices of the firefighters. Debbie and Fred experience a moment of intense anticipation as the noises from inside abruptly cease, replaced by an eerie silence. They exchange anxious glances, unsure of what has transpired. The firefighters' previously loud activity shifts to hushed whispers, heightening the tension. A police officer approaches them cautiously, holding a bundle wrapped in a blanket. His demeanor is gentle but serious as he informs them that something has been found. Debbie and Fred are frozen with anticipation as they prepare themselves for what the officer reveals, their emotions hanging on the edge of hope and fear. Debbie, overcome with apprehension, hesitantly uncovers the bundle under the officer's guidance. Fred stands by her side, offering quiet support. As she reveals the contents, her initial uncertainty turns to shock and disbelief at the sight of what appears to be a newborn, motionless and wrapped in the blanket. Debbie's reaction is one of stunned horror, covering her mouth in shock. Fred, equally stunned, leans in for a closer look, his voice trailing off in disbelief. The officer, maintaining a composed demeanor, urges them to take a moment to process what they're seeing while hinting that there's more they need to understand. Debbie and Fred receive an explanation from the officer that the baby they found is actually a motion sensor doll used for training. Debbie initially reacts with disbelief, and relief floods over them both upon realizing it's a false alarm. They chuckle nervously at the situation, with Fred expressing frustration at calling the police over a toy. The officer reassures them that it was the right call given the circumstances. Laughter mixes with tears as they reflect on the emotional roller coaster of the night. After the police and firefighters departed with the motion sensor doll, Debbie and Fred entered the bathroom to find it in disarray. The cabinet was askew, the floor covered in olive oil and muddy footprints from the firefighters. Despite the mess, they saw an opportunity to renovate the bathroom, recognizing the repairs needed. They joked about needing a new drain cover and planned to make their home more comfortable. Fred and Debbie smiled, ready to move forward without any more scares from dolls, laughing softly as they looked ahead to a fresh start. The couple embraced, relieved and exhausted, ready to move past the night's eerie adventure. Fred held Debbie close, rubbing her back in slow, soothing circles. "Let's get some sleep," Fred suggested gently. "Tomorrow's a new day," Debbie nodded. They held hands, ready to move forward without any more scares from dolls.